Volkswagen has always been like a standalone. For the longest time, I don't know who will be next. It could well be Audi. You can't really take a mid trim and request for a higher trim something into the mid. You can't do that. What does it really mean for you and me? Does it mean that the car is going to be cheaper? Hey guys, welcome back to Backseat Driver. I'm Julian and he is Desmond, and today we are going to talk about why brands are going direct to consumers and what does that mean for you and me as buyers.
Yeah, so I think some context about why we're doing this is because I think over the weekend and starting Friday, I guess, there have been a couple of news pieces that have come out about how some brands are starting to explore more sort of direct-to-customer business models and not necessarily maybe cut out the middleman, but I guess to
not completely
to re-explore, rethink the dealership-based model that I think most of us have witnessed over the past decades, right? And I don't know how many of you really know, but you know, when you're buying a car in Singapore, let's say you're buying a Honda, you're not buying from Honda necessarily, right? Obviously the car comes from the Honda factory, but it goes through a specific distributor, and obviously each brand has their own distributors. So you know, Honda is distributed by Car Motors, Toyota is distributed by Borneo Motors, Mercedes is distributed by CNC, that kind of thing. So obviously each brand has their own sort of specific dealership, but I think now what we're seeing is they're starting to sort of rethink whether that is sort of the best way forward.
Yes, okay, wait. So on that note, Volkswagen has always been like a standalone. For the longest time, Volkswagen is the distributor as well as the principal. So they have been like in the running for that for the longest time. So there is no middleman for that. However, if you look at it from a dealer's point of view, or at least from a brand's point of view, it's actually a lot of work. I mean, it also means that the principal, right, will have to depend on all these distributors for after-sales marketing.
I think there's also a question of why is this happening? I guess convenient answer is, oh, Tesla. You know, Tesla is like the answer to everything that's being disrupted in the industry. Which I think is both yes and no, in the sense that I think yes, Tesla is currently the only brand that's really doing this straight D2C model where it's literally you go to a website, you click on what car you want, and you pay money, and then the car eventually comes to you, right? But I think that is also a slightly more unique case in the sense that Tesla is only selling one model currently. I guess not that much choices when it comes to options. So you can sort of do that when you're selling one product or two products, right? But with a brand like let's say, you know, BMW, you have what, 20 models and 50 variants. I think it's fair to say that they're not doing this to sell more cars, because firstly, the car population in Singapore is very small relative to the rest of the world. And if you think about it from a sort of brand principle perspective, Singapore's a tiny
red dot.
A tiny red dot, right? But it's not like it's this whole idea of going direct to consumer is new globally. I think brands have really started to explore this in many other countries, and it's understandable that, hey, you know, why not explore that in Singapore as well?
What does it really mean for you and me? Does it mean that the car is going to be cheaper?
I don't think that the car will necessarily be cheaper. I mean, obviously from a brand's perspective, if I can make the same amount of money I'm making right now, obviously I want to make all of that money. I mean, that's just basic economics, right?
To me, what this means to consumers, having from principal direct to us, is you have prices that are a little bit more controlled. When I say controlled, meaning obviously, if you pass to a third party usually do a markup. Does that mean that it'll be any cheaper? There is that possibility, but like I said, I don't assume that they'll be 20% cheaper at all, or 15 even, because if I was the dealer, if I was the principal, I would love to maximize my margin, which is also part of why I would like to be direct to consumers, right? As all of us already know, a lot of the prices are being controlled also by COE, or rather affected by COE. Not controlled, but affected by COE. And I mean, like I said, man, if I was a principal, all I want to is just maximize my profits.
The flip side is, of course, then the question is, will prices get more expensive? Personally, I don't think so, because obviously with any dealership, they will have their dealer markup, right? They need to make some money there. Whereas what typically happens is that a brand will have a RRP, a recommended retail price, and then that's an indicator of how much the car is supposed to cost, I guess, and then the dealer will then price it accordingly. I don't think it's a case where now we have monopoly over the brand and then I can charge whatever price they want, because it still has to be reasonable to the market, right? You're not going to overprice your cars to the market. So I think from a price perspective, I don't foresee much fluctuation in pricing.
I think
it
will increase in general.
Yeah, I think personally, I think it will just sort of stay where they are.
To be honest, no, I actually think that you're right. I think we're going towards this direction. Is it a trend? To me, yes, I do think that it's an automotive trend at this point in time. I don't think it's a one-off thing. Otherwise, I don't think Porsche will be considering it. I don't think Hyundai will be considering it. I don't even think Mercedes-Benz will be considering it as well. I don't know who will be next. It could well be Audi. We're not sure. We're just speculating, of course. I don't think that it'll be 100% online retail, just like how Tesla is doing it. Because you gotta understand, you're forking out not $30,000 for a car in Singapore. You're forking out some $100, $150, maybe even $200,000 for a car. To go there, yes, my down payment may be $100, but to fully pay a 30% of the car, right, and just click, it's very daunting. It's a very scary affair. It's a wonderful experience if you've got money, I think, but if you're just the average Joe, it's actually a very scary thing. For Tesla to do it is a lot easier because you only have Model 3. Model Y will be coming next, it's already been homologated. One car or two cars means the customer profile is pretty much similar. You don't have multiple customer profiles, right? If I'm a Porsche owner, to buy a Cayenne will completely be different from, say, a profile of a customer who buys a 911. Right, I want to be pampered if I buy a car like this. I want to walk into a showroom and be treated like a king or something. If I just click, I'll get nothing. It's like going to Taobao to buy some stuff, and that's it.
And personally, I also feel a big part of it moving forward is also the data sort of question.
Yeah, right? Of course.
Because we've seen that brands are starting to explore alternative car ownership models. Do you want to call it ownership models? Where it's not so much car ownership, but things like leasing, rentals,
stuff like that. They actually want the details of potential customer base, right? They want all that. They want all that details. And currently, I don't think principal companies have it. Car principal companies have it. It's mostly with the distributors.
Yeah. So I think that from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense to want to get a bit more involved in the sort of right at the end of that customer journey of how are they buying the cars, how they're using their cars, how much do they use their cars, and that obviously provides a lot more data, and that allows them to better tailor their products moving forward, not just from a sort of product design perspective, but also from a business model perspective where you're seeing maybe 20% uptick in car leasing. So obviously, from a business perspective, you would want to
focus on that.
Have more of that available, right, to users. So for example, one thing that I know is that we've seen some Ioniq 5s running around on the roads. It's a case where Hyundai directly from HMC, not from Komoko, had a pool of customers and they told them, we'll sell you this car at a reasonable price.
Very reasonable price.
Right, but you have to agree to sort of give me all your driving data, because that allows them to understand how these cars are being used and can you expand, can you bring in 300 of these cars? Is there a market for that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I'm sure brands understand the power of data analytics, I suppose, and being able to get into that part of the whole sales model helps, that will help long term. So I think that's probably one reason why it's entirely reasonable to expect more and more brands to really rethink whether, hey, should I leave it all to a dealership or can I come in some capacity? I do think that from a consumer perspective, what you could expect is greater access to the brand. I think like Porsche has come out and said
that's what I want to say, right? Greater access to the brand. My mind wasn't.
They've come out and said that they want to give you the chance to experience a sports car on the track, that kind of thing. And I think that factors in the equation is because the brands want greater access to you. So they're not going to get that for free, right? So obviously they're going to give you something, right? They're going to give you that kind of experiential opportunities. Of course, I think having the brands more integrated into the ownership process also means that you have much easier for you to participate in sort of brand-wide activities, whether it's whether it's drive events, whether it's sort of customer activations, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's again, it will come down to the question of access because they want access to all of our data, that everyone does.
How will the whole buying experience be for you? We can't say for sure. We assume that you can just log onto a computer and just customize your car. There's a bit of customizer and you just click, like how Porsche does it now, or how BMW M did it before. You just have to click what color you want, what options you want, and you submit. And that's it. I suppose you can still go down to the show. I assume that you can still go down to the showroom. And,
honestly, if you ask me, I don't actually foresee the purchasing process to be vastly different because if you really think about it, right? Right now, you are kind of sort of doing it. Right? If you go to the showroom and then you tell your salesperson, hey, I want my new I want my new BMW M3 with this color bodywork, this color interior, I want this carbon fiber package and this. Effectively, what's happening is your salesperson is taking on an iPad, clicking these options on the configurator and then submitting it to BMW. It goes to the factory comes back with the car and then he passes you the car, right? So essentially that can be almost automated away. I mean, it's not that we're saying that there's no value in the sort of the sales process. Of course there is, but I think that digitalization of the sales process has already been happening for many years already.
It won't be vastly different.
It won't be vastly different.
But what's happening behind the scenes, on the other hand, will probably be different.
Yeah, so honestly, I actually think the biggest changes are going to be happening sort of behind the scenes from a brand perspective. I mean, some brands are already starting to reconsider the function of a salesperson, right? So for example, Polestar, I believe has like 6 Polestar spaces around the world now. And when we were down at the showroom launch in Singapore, they did mention that Singapore's actually the only Polestar space in the world that has salespeople. And that's a function of the fact that our market is as such.
Yes, because we are paying like $200,000 for a car instead of
but globally they've already done away with the salesperson model, so to speak. So it's not new, it's not happening overnight, right? It is something that brands are realizing. You don't need a salesperson to say, hey, you go and lay long with your customers, say, hey, hey, give me $1,000 discount. The sales, I guess whatever you want to call them, a sales consultant, a genius, product genius, whatever, they have a transforming role to play, which is that they're there to help you along with your purchase. If you need them or if you want them, but if you don't need them, you can do a lot of it yourself if you want. I'm very sure 10 years from now, showrooms will still exist. Whether they exist simply as a place where you go there, you sign a piece of paper, you bring your checkbook, maybe not, maybe it will be slightly different, maybe a bit more experiential, and I think that's perfectly understandable. Mercedes just opened a concept store, so they are not shuttering physical spaces, right? If anything, they are ramping up physical spaces. Are they rethinking what a physical space means to the brand? Yes.
Probably.
And that's true not just for the car industry. I mean, that's happening across all sorts of industry, the fashion industry, watch industry. It's happening everywhere, right?
Is it really possible to really just get rid of, okay, maybe get rid is a bit of a strong word, but let's not fully utilize a third party? After all, they've been doing this for so many years, man, decades. I mean, there's always a distributor. There've always been like a third party involved. And the relationship with customers are all from those dealerships, right? If you get rid of that, don't they just have to rebuild all these relationships all over again? Wouldn't that be a massive headache?
So I think the expectation, at least on our end, is that we're not going to see dealerships disappear, I don't think. Because they still have a role to play, right? I think a big part of it is the after sales, when it comes to servicing, maintenance, doing your trade-ins, all that kind of thing. You still want that function to exist and for someone to do it. So I think in all likelihood, what we're going to see is something like, I guess, what Porsche is reportedly going to explore, which is to form some sort of I don't know what is it called, a 50-50 kind of thing, where they create an entity where both parties have a hand in it. So I think that's the more likely way moving forward.
They probably need the dealership to do like the proper marketing and after sales and so on and so forth moving forward. But when cars evolve and it becomes all electric cars, I think servicing will be slightly easier or harder for all we know, but I think it'll just be slightly easier with the modular platforms and all that kind of stuff.
So I think one thing to consider is the fact that, manufacturers are transforming, right? They're going digital, going electric, etc., etc. So I think it's fully reasonable to also expect the car industry to not stay the same, right? It will change over time. So for example, one thing we've recently learned is that BMW are now appointing a second dealer.
Yep.
I think that's not something that we've seen in Singapore for a while, barring a short sort of Chevrolet period. But this is not uncommon around the world, right? Around the world, you have multiple dealerships.
We are the uncommon.
It's just because we are small, right?
Yeah.
So they only really need one dealership to sort of manage the whole island. But yeah, so I think changes are happenings on a higher like manufacturer level. So So I think it's to be expected that it will happen in other aspects as well. So I think this is not particularly surprising. I think the big question now is what's the rate of change, and I think that we don't really know yet. Personally, I think moving forward, consumers can expect more choices. I think the whole idea of what's happening is to provide more choices, not just in terms of like where you're buying from, so to speak, or how you're buying, but just choices in terms of what it means to have a car, whether it's to buy a car, whether it's to lease a car, whether it's to do some car sharing fleet thing. And I think this notion of choice is increasingly becoming more important to brands as well. They want to be able to provide the consumer with the full range of choices to be able to accommodate for every different kind of customer.
There are car makers out there who are already offering leasing options and so forth. So it sort of bridges that purchase. You know, if I want to buy a BMW, I know that I can actually try out a BMW, lease a BMW first before I decide to throw the money and buy and own a BMW. There are options like this. So Audi also has their Audi on demand, right? But I think this has already started years back. Now, on the topic of choice, actually, it's sort of true. I think it sort of gives a lot of people more choices as well. Because, I mean, if you talk about mass market cars, there are trims that are just fixed. You can't really take a mid trim and request for a higher trim something into the mid. You can't do that.
And I think that's
you probably can, but
it's
they're probably
much more unlikely. I think that's also a function of how the dealerships work, right? Which is that they are going to try to figure out what's best for the market, you know, what consumers want, and then they're going to order, say, 200 units of the base trim, 200 units of mid trim, and 200 units of the top spec trim, right? And you essentially have, let's say, you have 3 trim levels, you have 3 choices. And if you want a base engine, but you want some of the top spec model features,
you can't do that. You can't do that.
Cars are there. Those are the cars that are available to you to be sold.
Yeah.
So I think one possible benefit moving forward, if more brands adopt a more sort of direct-to-consumer approach, is that maybe you have a bit more flexibility.
It might be more customizable, probably.
Because you're unlimited to basically what the dealers have decided to import already. So I think that's maybe a benefit that you might see in the more mass market. I mean, obviously with your more premium models, that's kind of customization is more available to you. But also because they're doing low volumes and they command a much higher premium, so they want to offer you that premium experience. So
probably.
I do think that there's one potential benefit if more brands decide to go to a more direct to consumer.
It's always good to empower consumers, right? I mean, so hopefully we'll be able to have more choices in the future. We'll be able to have more control of what we want instead of just sticking to what is being provided to us, right? So let us know what you think. What do you guys think about this? Is this going to be an automotive trend moving forward? And what does it really mean to you? I mean, did we cover everything? Do you have any comments about what we just talked about? Do comment in the comment box below, and also do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because apparently 80% of you guys aren't subscribed. But if you do, it'll be easier for us to reach out to you and vice versa. So thank you very much for watching. Desmond, Julian, please do also follow us on TikTok. Our handle is @Sgcarmart. In the meantime, stay safe, be well. Bye-bye.